Hey everyone, and thanks for joining us again. In this episode of the podcast, we dive into the state of the market with everything AI. Our guest, Bruce Orcutt, shares his expert insights and experiences in the intelligent automation space. I'm going to kick off the conversation by discussing the transformative power of generative AI and its impact on how people and machine interact. Then we're also going to touch upon the challenges and opportunities in the AI landscape, including the importance of data availability and finding the right balance between technology and outcomes. Join us as we explore the exciting world of AI and its implications for the enterprise strategies. Let's dive in. So thanks for joining us. I've really been looking forward to this session, actually, to be honest. I think it's going to be really interesting to get your take on the state of the market with everything AI. But before we get into it, could you, let the audience know who you are, what you've been up to, and anything else interesting that you want to share with us?
Interesting. Okay, that's the tough ones. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining the podcast. My name is Bruce Orcutt, and I run product marketing at ABBYY. I'm responsible for the global go-to-market and product execution for the product portfolio for ABBYY globally. And I've been with ABBYY for 9 years and long history in the automation space, over 25 years. So I love this market and I love solving customer problems. And I'm really glad to be here, Max. Thank you.
So I've got a bunch of interesting topics. A lot of it is based on some of the recent developments. But before we dive into that, actually, I want to reference an event that happened. To set the stage, let's circle back to a specific moment that caught my attention at the Gartner Symposium 2023 in Barcelona just a few weeks ago. And there, Mary Masaglio, the VP analyst, made a profound statement, in my opinion, that generative AI is neither a technology or new technology, nor a business trend, but it really is a fundamental shift in how people and machines will interact. Now, this really echoes my statements and sentiments that I've shared in my blogs and actually in the first inaugural episode of this podcast. But with your seasoned experience in the industry, I'm eager to hear your perspective on how this transformative wave is really impacting the market. And how do you perceive this human machine interplay? And actually, I want to know, have you seen it happen before?
Well, it's a great question because have I seen it happen before? I've seen a lot of failed attempts to try to solve what now we see that ChatGPT can truly, and these generative AI systems can truly solve. So now you think about the interaction you have with system and if you need help with something. So I was at an AI conference last week about digital workers. And there was a system there, a gentleman was promoting his company that does vet services. And the ability of this AI now to interact with a pet owner and help them actually guide them to the best solution, the best treatment for their pet and help them order what they need and get feedback in real time is amazing. And we do as citizens, as humans, have an expectation of now with whatever we're doing. If you're trying to get a loan with your bank, you want to know right now, is it approved? When am I going to get it approved? Or where's my claim? And when am I going to get my money? And when am I going to get my benefits? And all these things. So now with generative AI, we see it happening and people doing with it. It's just truly making this real-time enterprise, this real-time answer, and this real-time really helpful system work. I mean, we've all had these nightmare experiences trying to get support with chatbots and things like that, where you start yelling at it, right? And you're screaming at it. Well, now there's systems now with these tools. They are actually very, very helpful and many times more insightful than a highly skilled or highly trained human. So we kind of appreciate that. So I do love where it's going. I do love where the improvements have been, but there's so much hype and over expectations, I think, being set now that people are kind of misunderstanding where we are today and where we could be. But certainly I see the opportunity on the horizon now for a lot of great automation to come from generative AI and these new services.
Yeah, I was really happy that she phrased it that way because I do believe the most profound thing that's going to happen is once we get and cut through all of the hype, we do get to that point. Like you said, it is so transformative in the sense that how we interact with it. We've all had the chatbots several years ago that basically drove us crazy.
Oh,
Although Clippy was fun to have on your Word document, it never served any kind of purpose except to annoy you. If you got bored, you could start poking it. But other than that, it never really did anything productive. So I think that is really indeed going to be the change. But if you think about it, the tech landscape has been on a roller coaster lately, in my opinion. First, we had the pandemic driven tech surge where every single technology company boomed like crazy. Then we had the crunch of supply shortages, which also definitely had an impact on tech in general, followed by a wave of industry layoffs, which had happened before, but
Yeah.
now it was definitely a magnitude of proportion quite larger. So it feels like we've been on a wild ride where the buzz around AI has been both a beacon of hope, but it's also starting to pose a question mark, I guess. So, Bruce, against that backdrop, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how the allure of AI is shaping enterprise strategies and investment decisions. What's the real score in how people are buying today?
Well, it's really impactful. I have to say that as it relates to strategies and business buying decision, it's very impactful. I don't see a customer making a buying decision without having some analysis around how does this impact our AI strategy, or how does this impact our customers, and then how do I translate that up to the CEO saying we're adhering to these new mandates and automation goals. So I think it's top of mind in all industries, and we see it in the IDP and process mining industry where it's usually the very first question people ask. What services are you using? How does your AI work? How does it interact with other AI services? And how can I leverage this for much more than what we're addressing today and in the future? So I think it's top of mind. I think it's definitely influencing buying patterns. It's definitely influencing decisions that are being made. And it's definitely putting some automation teams in a lot of powerful positions to make real strategic decisions for their enterprise that should be, really long lasting and impactful. And I think that's a very different dynamic than's happened in the past.
Yeah, because if I go back just a few years, actually, let's be honest about it. If I go back to before ChatGPT's introduction, you and I were very focused on talking about outcomes and proof points.
Yeah.
And if I go back far enough, I can't remember a time, and I'm starting to feel old just by saying that, but so I can only imagine how you feel, Bruce.
Because I'm really old.
But I do remember a time when you could still talk about technology, and it now feels like we've come full circle. And even though I think it is partly through the hype that we are now allowed to get, or I actually even have to talk technology quite a lot and go in depth, it kind of feels right that there's a little bit more focus on it. At the same time, I think it's really important that we stick with the proof points and the outcomes because that will definitely still differentiate companies from the ones that are just using AI, in my opinion, and the ones that are building it.
Well, it's funny. I like your feedback on this. I'm amazed that everybody trusts this word general because it is general. It's 1.8 trillion parameters to solve the world's problems in a question. Is that really going to solve your business transaction? Is that truly going to automate that engagement with the customer or that onboarding scenario or proving the identity or all these other things that you need to do to execute your business? And so it's so funny that everybody has this idea that this generalized platform, this generalized service will actually deliver on the automation and outcomes. And it does in many, many cases. But in a lot of very strategic and important transactions, it may fall short. And that's what people have to realize. And they don't know where it falls short until they go to production, or they don't know where it falls short until they really invest in training and analyzing it. But they have such a high expectation that it should work because it's generalized. And I think that's sort of the issue that customers are facing right now is, yeah, I could take in our world of IDP and take 10 invoices and run it through, and it's beautiful. And then I just tell the customer, well, run it through 10 times and compare the answers. And all of a sudden they're getting 1,000 different answers. And so how do they account for that? How do they overcome that? And how do they know when the answer is right versus wrong? And then how do they retrain the AI to give the expectation to be consistent? Those are all the challenges the customer has to ask when they start thinking about these generalized systems versus more purpose-built AI. That's really about a specific focus and a specific type of use case. So it's still, the technology is amazing. The results are all very impressive and the performance is terrific.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree. But you've touched on a couple of interesting things. But before we go there, I do want to ask a follow up question on the subject of, you said it has changed a lot the way companies are making investments, how they're definitely incorporating AI into their strategies. But that's all been happening in 2023. So if I would ask you, what's your prediction of where it's heading next in 2024? You think we'll get to a point where they also come back to kind of like a balance between technology and the results it delivers, or do you think we'll continue to see a lot of hype and pure focus on technology before anything else?
think that the hype has been around enough that people are waiting for the outcomes and results. So I think people are expecting real results now. And I think what we're going to see is that the notion of a document is going to completely change. The notion of how we generate documents and content to communicate is going to definitely change. And how we receive information for the purpose of engaging is going to change. And I don't know how that all plays out and how it unfolds, but it has to change because the way it's been done for 30 years is just, it's run its course. And I was so impressed. Like, it was 20 years ago that Google said, we're going to reinvent email. And they created this Wave product. And I was like, oh yeah, because email sucks. It's been around forever. And then it didn't change anything. Right. And they came back and said, so I'm waiting for this to have that impactful change though. I think that there's been so many failed attempts earlier for what the value that I see now with chatbots and just understanding your data, understanding your communication, understanding your engagements, that I think it's ready to be mainstream in production. So I'm excited for what's coming in 2024.
That's great. But I do think, if I'm being honest, we have a few hurdles that we'll have to get through before we get to that point, which I'm also hoping for that we get to. Absolutely. So what I'm referring to is a recent study by the University of California, Berkeley, and Stanford. And they've hit upon some startling revelations about the robustness of these large language models. In the research, they presented a battery of tests across 800 different dialogues, revealing that every model experienced hundreds of failures in following its own rules that were actually built in by the suppliers, by the technology vendors of these models. So even the front runner, GPT-4, which, OpenAI does hammer a lot on the security and the fault tolerance that they've built in, faltered over 300 times. So with those kind of figures in plain sight, and considering the widespread deployment of these large language models and handling sensitive customer data, because I have seen that out there, I have seen companies starting to leverage it. For me, it's a pivotal question, right? So how do we navigate this landscape of tech that we rely on that can easily be jailbroken? And what are your thoughts on finding the right balance between security, innovation, and making sure that we get the outcomes, but without the cost or some of the downside?
So that's a great question. It is the Wild West still from a compliance standpoint. I mean, nobody really knows what's in those models. And everybody's trying to catch up now, and figure out how do I explain what's in them, how it was trained, what the influences of that data is it anonymized, how was it created? And then you have that risk that really confidential information gets exposed somehow through these services, which would be a shame. And I think that's all being figured out, right? You see legislation, you saw the Biden administration had their executive orders, you see the European Union really leading in this area. So I think legislation is definitely going to come. We certainly need it to put some boundaries around this. But I like your earlier point though. I thought it was spot on, which was related to these wonderful lab environments where people run these tests. And then they come back and say, well, you know what? We're getting these phenomenal results. Everybody gets excited. And then they run it against the real world. And it's like, oh. And it's like, everybody talks about this lab experiment and they talk about the results of the lab, but they're not talking about how is this going to work when we unleash it to the mass market? And then all of a sudden everything starts to fall apart, it breaks, and it's hallucinating and it's giving you wrong answers or do anything. So I think that's all part of the risk. And I think that's what I've not met a developer yet working in AI who is not focused on the trustworthiness, ethics, and being open about what's in their models and training the models and how it gets feedback. So I think that's really encouraging. And with legislation, that'll get even better. But until there's litigation and we know where the boundaries are, we're not going to know.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Sarbanes-Oxley when it first came out. Is everybody was looking at Joe like, what does it mean to you? We're like, I don't know, but we have to document everything. We know we have to be compliant, but until someone gets sued and loses, you don't know where the lines are. So it still has to be decided, but it will come. And it definitely is coming.
It definitely is. No, I compare it to back when everybody started moving to the cloud. You could just do that. There were no questions asked. Everything was great.
Yeah.
And then if you look at now, you get 1,000-line InfoSec questionnaires. There's every kind of compliance that you have to go through just to be able to say, well, this is pretty secure. Even though it's, no matter what you do, it's more secure than most people's data centers than they used to be back in the day. So I fully also expect that there's going to be a ton of questions asked by and customers from the people that are implementing it and people that are supplying artificial intelligence in general. So, but you mentioned that something really interesting there, which kind of brings me to the next point. You said, I haven't talked to a developer yet that is not thinking about making sure that it's ethical, that it's compliant. Now, Retool actually just brought out their state of AI report for 2023, and they surveyed 1,500 tech professionals across different layers. And I saw some really intriguing insights in there. Most notably, actually 51% says, we believe AI is overrated. And even more staggering to me is that a significant 35.2% says we're pursuing AI mainly to keep up with the trends. And that's just behind cost savings at 38%. So that this really means that it's a really complex landscape of AI adoption and perception. When you see these kind of things, what brings that to, what would you think about these kind of results when actually asked to the people working with this technology day in, day out?
Well, so it depends. So AI has been overpromised, and there's a race to just to win the nomenclature battle and the naming battle and the branding battle with AI. So every vendor has to put, oh, AI, 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 and everything. I think there's a significant amount of AI fatigue on the part of buyers because okay, there's AI, but it's nothing in your product. You're going to go out and use AI to summarize something, or you're going to go out and use AI to give you the entities or relationships. And and so yeah, that's interesting, but it's not really AI in your product. It's nothing you did. And so everybody who uses it is equal. So if we all use the same AI, it's all the same product. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of not sexy. And as a product guy, I'm really trying to see, how do I differentiate? How do I make it better? How do I improve the outcomes? And all the AI is trying to do is make everybody equal and the same. So that's interesting. I did find that response interesting, but because developers, yeah, they're more realistic people, right? They're more honest. They're not a marketer like me who's gonna really put the sunshine pump on and go make it sound beautiful. They're gonna be more direct and honest. So I get that they have a little bit of skepticism, but again, there's so much overwhelming opportunity with what the potential of this AI is, that I think everyone's just on the technical side is trying to be a little bit cautious of over promising or over setting expectations. But I firmly believe that the market will deliver on this high expectation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I just love seeing those numbers. I thought it was really interesting to get those kind of responses because you would expect to be the sunshine pump, just be full on. And this is really for me something that has been changing just the last few months in the market, if I'm being honest, that there's more
Okay.
reality seeping in as we continue to explore what these technologies can actually do for us. So
Well, and I think people wanted to lie to them. I see buyers that just absolutely would prefer to go with the random AI option versus the proven historical old method of doing something. And you look at them comparing the results, and there's no comparison. The proven method is highly much more efficient, much more effective, gives results, but they just have to go with the AI option just because it's AI. And you're like, okay,
yeah,
well, good luck with that. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks when you're not getting
yeah.
any ROI on that
Yeah,
investment.
it reminds me of a conversation I had with a group of data scientists that were going to build a model to just get a piece of information. And when I told them they could solve it with a regex regular expression in under 5 minutes,
Yeah, you can
you
Google
can
that.
Google
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. I mean, and they were just like, "Oh yeah, yeah, we hadn't thought of that yet," because it's so much tunnel vision, right?
It's
Um,
too easy.
and that's why I keep saying this, and I know you've heard it from me a ton of times, and probably by the time that our listeners have listened to a couple of things from me, they'll have heard it a ton of times too. But you know, AI is not a single thing, right? There's no one size fits all. You have to look at the right solution for the right thing, and sometimes that is something as simple as a regular expression. It is the most efficient. It is the most fit for
Yeah.
purpose that you could possibly have, and there's nothing wrong with it. And for other cases, you do want to go into building your own model or leveraging an existing model and fine tuning it. It all depends on the kind of real world problem you're trying to solve, and that makes a huge difference. So you mentioned an event that you went to, and I know you went there. So you've already told me a couple of things about it, but just to frame the picture, and you can definitely fill it in a couple of blanks. But it was an event that brought together several leaders in the AI space, and A really interesting article was actually published on VentureBeat not too long ago that had the following section. I'm just going to read a specific section from it because I want to get your ideas on it. So it starts with this particular title. So for training generative AI, getting enough data is the problem. So training LLMs is a different challenge, said Meta's director of engineering for generative AI, Sergey Yudunov. And he said the main constraint is getting enough data to train them. It's widely speculated that GPT-4 was trained on the whole internet, but if you take a level of simple assumptions, the entire publicly available internet, if you just download it, is roughly 10 trillion tokens. If you clean it up and deduplicate, because there's so much duplication on the internet, you get to 20 trillion, maybe 10 trillion tokens. And if you focus on the high quality stuff that's in there, the amount will be even lower. So the amount of distilled knowledge that humanity created over the age is actually not that big, especially if you need to keep adding more and more data to these models to scale them better to get better performance. So we actually estimated for the next generation, a higher performing model will require 10 times more data. So if GPT-4 was trained on, say, 20 million, the next model will actually require 200 trillion. We don't even have that. So we don't have enough publicly available information. Now, for me, this is really indicative of how ABBYY can help power the next generations of LLMs because enterprises, museums, and so many other organizations have these vast amounts of high quality data locked away inside of their document. Could you give us your vision on that? I mean, is the AI race going to be in the technology, or is it going to be in getting enough high quality data? Is the race going to be won by whoever gets their hands on that?
That's a phenomenal question, Mr. Max. I love it because it is about the data at this moment, because we're seeing now our services and solutions are being opened up now to helping large enterprises and solution providers to gain access to all that data locked in documents, make it visible to these language models for training. And it's a complex problem. It's a very complex problem that it's interesting that, that it's being exposed now as an opportunity. And you look at the market overall, but I thought everything's been digitized, everything is stored, everything is tagged, and it's not. And so gaining access to that PDF data to help train these models now is the next green field of data that people are looking for to train these large language models. So it's creating a tremendous market opportunity for ABBYY because that's our core business. But it's also interesting to note of how vendors are looking at this problem because the technology really now matters. Keeping structure, keeping the table. These are scientific journals. These are academic journals. These are high depth pieces of content and artifacts that everything has to be preserved structurally. And so it's not just about, hey, can you give me all the text in this document so I can find the words? Order of the words matter. Structure of the words matter. Layout matters. And so it's a very complex problem, but it is the new greenfield of opportunity that this is more focused, more detailed training of the LLMs that's going to come from the good old documents that we've all come to love and appreciate.
Yeah, it feels like another circle of life has been completed where we went from OCR and then that becoming a commodity going to extraction, classification, everything that's now intelligent document processing. And now we're right back at, hey, we need good quality OCR.
We're right back at it. Give me the data and the PDF. But now it's not, nobody cares if it's searchable. Everybody cares, can it feed my LLM?
Yeah, exactly. So I want to wrap up with a quote from Doug McMillon, the president and CEO of Walmart. He said, it's important for us to realize and stay focused on what we're trying to solve for and not get enamored with any particular technology, whether that's AI or otherwise. I think this quote is quite profound and different from a lot of, things you're hearing in the market, the hype in the market. What goes through your mind when you read that? What makes you, are you like, I fully agree? Or are you like, well, this is exactly what we do, or do you see it different?
Well, I'm reassured the CEO of a company like Walmart, because we all know that Walmart, to be competitive and differentiate, has to be highly, highly efficient and effective to keep those costs down. And so I appreciate the fact that he's like, hey, let's be real about this. Let's have honest discussions. Let's be frank about what the value is and the benefits are versus the hype. And I appreciate that because you don't want to make decisions that are going to impact the next 10 years of your business off of an emotional reaction to say, I have to use technology versus I have to solve these core fundamental problems that hopefully this technology will help address. And so I appreciate that because I don't want other CEOs thinking that way as well. I think it's best for the industry to keep the hype we celebrate the hype. We love it. But let's keep it back to what are we trying to solve and how we're going to address things to make things better for us as consumers, us as citizens, or, just as humans. How does it make our lives better? Yeah, I think that's what should be the focus. I really appreciated his insight, and hopefully more people will follow that line versus let's just automate at all costs and celebrate the hype of AI.
You want to put in a shameless plug for what Abby does at this point, or are you like, well, not today?
Everybody knows Abby. We're the market leader in everything related to document automation and make transforming documents into data. So no, we are very much loving this area of where we're in the market right now. It's really a transformational time for Abby for sure.
Awesome. Well, Bruce, those were the topics I very much enjoyed discussing with you today. I hope you had fun as well.
Thanks, Max. I do. I love being here. Thank you.
No, it's very much appreciated. So once we get to another cycle in the next couple of months, I'd be sure, be great to have you back and see where we're at that point. But for this state of the market, what has changed since generative AI came into life, or at least everybody got it into their hands, I think we got some really good insights today. So very much appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Max. Yep. No problem.
Thank you. So that's a wrap on today's insightful journey through the evolving landscape of AI. I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to Bruce for joining us and sharing his profound expertise. It's conversations like these that illuminate the path we're on, a path marked by rapid technological advancements and challenging yet exciting possibilities. As we navigate this dynamic era of AI, it's clear that the intersection of human creativity and machine intelligence is reshaping our world in unprecedented ways. From transforming how businesses operate to altering our daily interactions with technology, the implications are vast and deeply transformative. I hope this episode has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to think about the role AI plays in your life and work. Remember, it's not just about technology itself, but how we can harness it to solve real-world problems and drive meaningful outcomes and change. Thank you for tuning into our podcast. I look forward to bringing you more stimulating discussions and expert insights in our upcoming episodes. Until then, keep exploring, stay curious, and remember, the future is being written now, and you're a part of it.